A reading from Galatians 6, 9 through 10. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially to those in the family of faith.
So for some context for those of you who haven't been here, this time every year about this time, I try to spend a couple, 2-3 weeks doing some vision casting for our church, just talking about where we've been and where we are and where we're going. Of course, this time last year, we rolled out our Be Here campaign, which we've spent the last year talking about. For those of you who haven't been here for that, the idea there is, Western culture has been moving away from any kind of explicitly Christian foundation for a very long time. Or fewer and fewer people are going to church, consider themselves Christians, more and more people are leaving churches, and hence more and more churches are closing. And that's going to continue. That tide's not going to change anytime soon. And so when you kind of look down the road 25 years and you start thinking about what Western culture is going to look and feel like, I don't think there's ever been a time where the church has been more important for Western culture, and there's probably never been a time where the church has been less important to Western culture. And so the vision here is that 25 years from now, our church will still be here. And I know that I've said this many times, like that doesn't sound like this really big, hairy, audacious goal. But when everything is moving in this direction, the fact that there might just be a light still there, still shining is a big deal. Right? Sometimes, a big kind of biblical motif would be remnant. You get the people of Israel, they get carried off into exile and they're living in Babylon for 70 years, and some of them come back. And it's like there just were some left, right? After everything that happened, after the whole nation was destroyed and all the cities were destroyed and everybody was carted away, eventually some people came back. And it's that kind of an idea. It's a remnant idea. That 25 years from now, maybe there would still be a church on this corner, and more importantly than that, a group of people inhabiting this place, still impacting the world for Christ. That's what Be Here is all about. Now, to do that, there's going to be a lot of things we have to do. One of the things that we've decided to do is to expand and renovate our building as part of that process. But what I've been trying to do in this series is make sure that we're focused. It isn't about the building, and I hope you all know that. This season is just as much about building the community that inhabits the building as it is about building the building. And I'm trying to talk about this next season of life as an opportunity for us to leverage to grow into that kind of community, right? The kind of people that I think the world sorely needs. And so last week I talked about this is going to be an opportunity for us to grow in Christian character. This is not going to be an easy year for us coming up. There's going to be a lot of stuff to do, and that's going to create a lot of opportunities for us to tap into all of the worst parts of ourselves. And the Apostle Paul says to the church in Colossae, like, you got to put on Christian character like clothing. Like, it's just a choice you got to make. Like, before you come down the stairs, you got to do a little fit check, and you just got to say, hey, am I covered in mercy and forgiveness and patience and humility, especially with one another, but also with the world? And that's how I'm going to go into the world. So this is a chance for us to grow in Christian character. Today I want to talk about, it's also an opportunity for us to grow in Christian habits. So not just character, but habits, things that we do. And I want to talk about two in particular: service and mission. Service and mission. So the Apostle Paul, the words weren't up on the screen, but the Apostle Paul is writing to the church in Galatia, and he says, do good to one another. Don't grow tired in doing good. Whenever you have opportunity, do good to everyone, especially to the family of faith. Now, I want to start, it's not in the text, but it's really important that you understand this. And I think you do, because we preach this here. But before you have any imperative talk, right? The kind of you should talk, the you should go do this, or you should go do that, or you should stop doing this, or you should stop doing that kind of imperative talk. And there's a lot of imperative talk in the Bible. All imperative talk is preceded by indicative talk, meaning that the Christian gospel is not an if-then arrangement. It's not a contract. Sometimes it comes out that way, either because preachers like me were not being careful, or because we actually think of it this way, which is a shame. But sometimes the Christian gospel comes out as an if-then arrangement. If you believe, then you'll be forgiven. If you have enough faith, then God will do fill in the blank. If you give enough, then God will bless you. It's an if-then arrangement. And it puts all of the weight on us. So yeah, I mean, you got this good God out there, and that God loves you, and that God is sort of holding out wonderful things for you. But at the end of the day, if you're going to actualize any of that, it's really all on you. It's whether you believe enough, or you care enough, or you have enough faith, or you give enough, or you work hard enough. That is not the Christian gospel. That is not good news. And a lot of times, Christian people can leave churches with that kind of weight. And again, sometimes that's just an unnecessary byproduct of imprecise or clumsy language. Sometimes it's because preachers actually believe that and lay that on people. And I think that might have been one of the things Jesus was getting at when he said you lay these unbearable burdens on people and you don't lift a finger to help them. The Christian gospel is not an if-then arrangement. It's more of a because, therefore arrangement, right? Because God loves you, because Christ came, because Christ lived and died and rose again, because you are forgiven, because, therefore. Because all of these things are true. Because God created the world in love, because God sustains and protects the world in love, because God redeems the world in love, because all things come from God who is love, because that is true, and that was true before you were ever born. That is the context in which you came into existence. I mean, quite literally, the biblical narrative is that God calls being out of nothingness. The context for human existence is the love of God. There is no other context in which we live and move and have our being. So the Christian gospel is not an if-then deal. It's a because, therefore. It's a because this is true and has always been true, and now you know it's true. Because of that, therefore, let's go do this. Because you have a loving God who provides for you, let's use our resources in this way. Because God has loved you and has served you in this way, let's go serve other people in this way. It's always a because, therefore. The Christian life is always a faith response to something that is already true. Not to earn it, not to make it true, but because it's true. That is the good news of Christian faith that we as Christian people are always responding to. And it's implicit in what Paul says here, but this is bedrock for Paul's theology. He's not looking at the Galatians and saying, you know what, guys, you really need to improve your service energy and, do better. He's saying to them, because God has served us, because God has done good to us, let us be people who do not tire in doing good for one another, especially, right, for the family of faith. So it's a because, therefore, and it's really important that we start there, even though it's not in the text. Otherwise, all of the imperative talk that I'm going to get ready to do, right, about service and mission, all of that hits you like, I'm not good enough, I don't measure up, I need to give better, I need to give more or do more or, right, be a better Christian person. And that's not good news. That's weight none of us need. So just know that the indicative always precedes the imperative, even when it's not explicitly stated. And if Christian preaching is true gospel preaching, the message that always should come out, regardless of what the text is, regardless of what the topic is, the message that ought to come out is, you are loved by God because God is love. You are forgiven because that is who God is. And because that's true, that opens up a whole new way of life for us. There are all kinds of things that we can let go of, we can walk away from, we can put away. And we can enter into a whole new way of being because that's true. Okay, now with that primer in place, you got that locked in? Okay, with that primer in place, Paul says to the Galatians, let's not tire in doing good. Again, because God has been tireless in doing good to us. Do you feel that? Do you feel that? When I get up in the morning, do I sense and know and feel at the kind of base of my soul, God has been tireless in doing good to me. God has loved me to the grave and beyond. Okay, because God has been tireless in doing good to us. We should be tireless in doing good to one another. That whenever we have the opportunity to do what is good, we should do it, especially to the family of faith. Now, this season we're getting ready to enter into. So if you weren't here last week, we made the announcement, we're in the pre-construction process right now, doing construction documents and engineering and permitting and all this really fun, exciting stuff. That process is going well. It should be done around somewhere in February. Our leadership team voted to move into construction as soon as pre-construction's done. So this process is happening. We are going to build this thing. We're not just talking about it. It is going to happen, which means all of 2024, pretty much the whole year, we're going to be moving out of this building, living somewhere else, and then moving back. Okay? So it's one of the opportunities in front of us is to grow in the Christian habit of service. There's going to be a lot of work that needs to get done. One of the habits that's supposed to mark the church is service. That we are people who serve one another in love. It's what it means to be Christian people. The world that you and I live in treats us like customers. Everywhere you go, you're a customer, and every institution, whether it's a school or it's your own company, every institution is a service provider nowadays. You and me, we're customers, and every institution is a service provider, and the purpose of those institutions is to provide whatever you think you need or want. And that's not your fault. It's not my fault that's just the way that things are shaped in our culture, but it has an impact on us. It's very difficult to not walk through the doors of a church and not think of the church as a service provider and ourselves as customers. It's just the world that we live in. It's not our fault. It's just our culture. But the church is not a service provider, and Christian people are not customers. Right? Paul refers to the church like a family. But the church is a family. It's a gathering of people, every member of the family, both called and equipped to pitch in, to love and serve one another, so that, to switch metaphors, the whole body can be built up in love. So one of the trademarks of the church is supposed to be the habit of service. This is the place where, unlike the world where 20% of the people do 80% of the work, in the church 100% of the people do 100% of the work. That's the way that it's supposed to be. Now, sadly, that's not often the case. In a lot of churches, you see a typical kind of curve of 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. Now, to be clear, our stats are much better than that. We have an incredibly high percentage of people who serve the church, which I'm incredibly grateful for, and I think that's a mark of spiritual health for our church. But that doesn't mean we have total engagement. There's something in this season for us to learn. This is an opportunity for us to learn, not just learn in theory, but learn in our bodies, learn in our hands and our feet. Learn the habit of service, of loving one another as Christ has loved us. We're going to have to do a lot of things to move out of this building and eventually to move back. I talked about some of it last week, but we're going to have to inventory every physical asset in this building. Every chair, every kid's toy, every TV monitor, every clock. I don't know if you've looked around. We have a lot of those. We're going to have to inventory all of them, and we're going to have to decide what of that stuff are we going to, what are we going to keep and use over at Max Fitness while we're there, maybe like our auditorium chairs. We're going to have to decide what we're going to keep and store because we're going to use it in our new building, maybe like our office furniture, stuff like that. And then we're going to have to decide on the stuff that we just don't want or need anymore, we'd like to get rid of, like maybe the mauve dividers in the women's restroom, okay? Regardless of how we do this, everything in the building has to get labeled, packed up, and moved somewhere. And if you've ever lived in a place for a long time, 25 years, you know how much stuff you accumulate in 25 years, and you know what an overwhelming process it is to try to go through all your stuff and figure out what you're going to keep and what you're going to get rid of. We have to do all of that. I mean, we are going to need people who know how to organize, who know how to put stuff in boxes, who are willing to like pick it up and move it from A to B. We're going to need people who have trucks and trailers, right? Are going to be able to move things from one place to another. We're going to need people who know how to organize this kind of stuff. Of course, we're going to need people who are able to boss everybody else around. Some of you live for this sort of thing, you know? We're going to need that. We're going to need a lot of people, okay, in that world. Of the stuff that we're going to get rid of, so as we inventory the building, one of the things that we're hoping to do is anything that we're not planning to keep, we'd like to try to sell as just a part of a broader fundraising process before we either donate it or we pitch it. So right now, the weekend of February the 2nd, we're planning to do like the mother of all rummage sales. Yes, I said rummage sale. If you know me, you know that rummage sale is it's right around in my vocabulary about as highly thought of as potluck, but we're going to do it, okay? We've already got a team of people who have agreed to organize it, which is great, but we're going to need people to come alongside of them and help them run it and set up and tear down and organize and advertise and price stuff. And right, I have a couple of like existential nightmares. This is one of them for me, okay? But some of you are like, oh, happy day. Like this is I live for this sort of thing. We're going to need that because there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to be looking to get rid of. Depending on what we come up with, we might open that up. That'll be up to that team, but we might open that rummage sale up to you all. You know, if you're in that post-Christmas reality and you're like, I'm looking to get some stuff out of my house, right? We might ask you to add some of your stuff to some of this stuff, right? And all the proceeds go to the church. So there'll be more details on that, but we need a lot of people to help with that. We're going to have a lot of demo and construction stuff to do. I had some families come up to me last week and they're like, oh, we can swing a sledgehammer. Okay, listen, slow your roll. Okay, let me pump the brakes on this just a second. No, there will be some of that. If you're the kind of person who you're like, I don't know anything about construction, but man, I'd like to break stuff. There will be an opportunity for that. It'll be limited, but there'll be some opportunity for that. We're going to have to tear a bunch of stuff out of this building, right? All of the base molding and the trim throughout the whole building, we want to tear out and so that we can repurpose that in the new building, some of it. So there's flooring we have to tear out and get rid of. There's stuff that we're going to tear out because we want to temporarily use it over at Max. Some stuff that we're just going to tear out and get rid of, okay? Some stuff that we're going to tear out so that we can repurpose for when we're back here. So we're going to need people predominantly in the month of March who are willing to just come over here during the week or in the evenings or on the weekends or whatever and do a bunch of demo and tear out. I mean, one, that's going to help save us money on our project, but two, it's just work that has to be done for our own purposes because it's stuff that we need or that we want to keep or retain. So there's going to be demo stuff that's got to happen here. There's some demo stuff that has to happen over at Max Fitness. There's some half walls and some things that we want to tear out. There are some walls we need to construct, really big ones, like 20-foot tall walls that we have to construct to make a sanctuary space. So all that to say, like, we need people who have that kind of skill. I mean, if you're the kind of person that's like, I just want to kick a wall over, you can do that. I mean, there'll be some of that. But if you're the kind of person like you've got some construction skill, like you've been in the trades, or that's something that you're familiar with, we're gonna need you because there's going to be between January and March. That's going to be a pretty high intensity window of things that we got to tear out and things that we gotta construct. And of course, when we get over there, I mean, you've heard me say this, I hope, like the plan is for life to live life as usual, right? Same number of services, same service time. Like we're not, the whole idea was to just try to pick our church up and kind of plant it over there. So we're trying not to change the rhythm of our life. But what that means is if you're currently serving on our music team or in a kid's classroom or in the tech booth, right? Or on a hospitality team, or you're making coffee or you're cleaning up coffee, we're going to need you to keep doing that. Like, this isn't going to change. And there are, if you're in a position where you're not doing any of that, the Max Fitness space is about twice as big as this current building. It is a big open space. We are going to need as many hands on deck as we can get to do life together over there. So this is an opportunity for some of you to say, you know what, I've been delaying that. I've been putting that off. to give everybody as generous a hearing as possible. I think a lot of people don't get involved at church because they just haven't been asked. They don't perceive that there's a need. It's like, well, they always have people up on stage. They always have people teaching the kids. So right? I'm telling you, the need is there. This is an opportunity for all of us to step up and serve one another, to do good to one another, right? And even if it's in a non-Sunday situation, right? Life is going to continue. People are going to keep having babies. They're going to get sick. People are going to lose loved ones. People are going to need care. Many of you serve in that capacity. We're going to need you to continue to do that, and we're going to need more people to step up into that. So this is an opportunity for us to learn the habit of service, to do good to one another, especially right to the family of faith. So starting today, sorry, I should have mentioned this, but you can throw that out there, Kim. Starting today, we've put this up on our website. We have a sign-up genius on our website. So we have laid out every team that we can imagine needing in at least the next 6 months to pull off displacement, right, to move out of this building and into the max space. You can access, you just go to our website, watervillecc.org, click on the Get Involved drop-down menu, and you'll see it. It says Max Service Opportunities. Max Service Opportunities. Click on that, and you'll see a Sign-Up Genius. If you click on the Sign-Up Genius, all the teams are there, the time commitments, the basic time windows, so you know when that work is happening, so you know what you're signing up for in terms of job description and when this is going to go down. Roughly speaking, how many people we think we'll need for those things. I'm asking everyone, if you're going to be in town, if you're going to be living here, I'm asking you to go on the website, go to that Sign Up Genius, click on it, look through those teams, and between you, your family, right, sign up for a team or more than one team, right? You might see more than one. You're like, I can serve in that way. I would love to see everybody in our church step up to serve one another in love through this process, so that when this whole process is done and we get back here, serving one another in love, right? 100% of the people doing 100% of the work, this has become the norm. That's just the norm. That's just the way it is. It's just how we are. And if you're a new person who walks through the door, if you're going to stay here for more than one Sunday, you're probably going to get involved because it's who we are. It's what we do. That's something that we can learn, I think, in this next 6 to 12 months together. But of course, the church, the reason we serve one another, the reason you serve the church is so that the church can serve the world. It's not meant to be just everything internally focused. It's meant to create a reality so that we go out into the world to live in ways that the world doesn't live. And that's the habit of mission. And we're going to be at this max space for 8 to 10 months. It's at a mall. We're going to be located at a mall. We're going to have neighbors with whom we share walls. There are going to be people who walk by our doors every day because they're just there for some other reason. It is a unique opportunity for us to think critically about how do we intentionally love and serve people, especially as it relates to our stuff and our space. If you've been around our church for any length of time, we have a very open posture with our space and our stuff. I mean, how many of you have driven by the church on like a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Saturday and like a bunch of cars in the parking lot and you've said, what's going on at the church? It's a good question. I have no idea. I really don't. I've stopped asking. So many individuals and families and outside organizations use our building for stuff. I mean, our policy has basically become, if it's not illegal, immoral, or grossly negligent, our stuff is your stuff. Like, you can use it. And people do. I mean, whether it's the Children's Discovery Center using our auditorium for a Christmas program, once a year they hold their annual staff retreat here. There's like 175 elementary school teachers in this building. Landon and I can't go to the bathroom because 95% of them are women, so they just take over the restrooms. Right, the CDC's here. The Waterville Tree Commission uses our building to like hold meetings to talk about bushes and stuff. Like people have showers and like birthday parties, and I mean, you name it. There's a soccer organization that uses the community room, like little kids in there kicking soccer balls around. Everyone and their mother uses our building for stuff all the time because our posture has just been, Our stuff's your stuff. Our space is your space. If our space can be a blessing to you, come and use it, right? And that's a great posture. That posture is going to continue. This is who we are. That's not going to be any different at Max or any different when we come back here. We're just going to have a nicer, larger building to offer people to do stuff. And that's great. So that posture is going to continue. You know what we haven't been very good at? And this is just, I'm just confessing this. What we've not been very good at as a church is kind of proactively reaching into the community to be intentional about how we use our space. Right? Like we've never gone into the community and said, hey, what are the needs? Right? Our posture's always been, if you need it for something, just come ask and we'll let you use it. And that's a great posture. But it's very different to go into the community and say, we've got a building. Are there unique needs in our community that we could use our building to meet? We've never done that. But that's mission. I mean, that's more of a missional posture. Opening your doors and letting people kick soccer balls in your community room that's just like hospitable. I mean, that's good. But it's missional to look at your community and say, how can we actually use our stuff to help people in ways that are specific to our community? We've just not been very good at that. I'm looking at our time going over to Max, I'm thinking, what a great opportunity for us to have to think that way, right? We're in this new location, we're in a mall, we're only gonna be there for 8 to 10 months. If the goal was for us to go live in a cave and just ride out construction, we would not be going over to Max Fitness. We're gonna be in this highly visible area, in a mall, lots of foot traffic. We're gonna be bumping up against people that we don't normally come into contact with. I think it gives us a great opportunity to be thinking missionally. How can we intentionally use that space in that place to love and care for the people we're going to come into contact with? I don't know. I mean, maybe we could set up our bounce houses once a month and provide childcare for people while they're shopping. Maybe we could host an indoor pickleball tournament. I mean, it is a gym after all, right? Maybe we could come up with ways to host events at the mall that would draw a lot of traffic to the mall and bless the businesses that are there. Now, I don't know. I don't know yet, but you might know. You might be sitting there thinking, I've got a great idea. I've got a great idea for a way that we could use that space for 8 to 10 months to serve and bless people in ways that we probably can't use this space for, either because of the way the space is set up or where it's located. The point is, I want us to shift into that gear. Right? Having to leave this building and go over there kind of forces that issue a little bit. Are we just going to live over there for 8 to 10 months and come back? Or are we going to think about what does it look like to be Christians and to be missional people in that space for 8 to 10 months? And if we're willing to do that, like you might have an idea in your head right now. You might be thinking, this would be a great use of that space. I would like to know that idea. If we will click into that gear and maybe put some of that stuff into practice, well, then maybe by the time we get back here a year from now, again, now we just think that way. Now we're reimagining how to use our normal building and our normal stuff in that way, right? Maybe we do conduct a community survey. Maybe we figure out a way to reach out into the community and say, hey, what are the needs? What do you need? And we've done this a little bit. You know, the Anthem Community Food Ministry that operates out of our building, that operated out of a different church years and years ago. And it was going to close down. And so some pastors in the area, we went over there and we said, hey, you know, I did not know, and you might not know. You might not be aware of the fact that how many people in our community have material need. It's surprising when you drive around, you would think, yeah, there's no material need in our community. There is. So we decided to take that food ministry. We just decided to locate it in our building because we've got a 1-story building and we've got access and egress and all that stuff. But that was an idea. That was one of those like, hey, there's material need. People need food. We should intentionally use our building to meet that need. And for the last, what's it been, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, we've been doing that. I want to see us do more of that. Or maybe we reach out into the community and we realize like, man, there's a lot of people, more people than you think, who want to live in the Anthony Wayne community because of the school system or for whatever reason, but it's like, you know, 2 working parents and they can't afford the kind of childcare that a lot of people can afford. And that's a real need. Maybe we decide, hey, we've got this brand new, wonderful kids area. Maybe we use that. Maybe we coordinate with some kind of other organization. We provide a daycare or childcare or something. I'm not saying we do that. I'm just dreaming out loud. I want us as a church to be thinking about, we've been blessed. Look at what we've been given. It's one thing to have an open posture and say, hey, our stuff's your stuff, come use our stuff. We're always going to be that way. It's another gear to say, wait a minute, what world are we living in? What do people actually need? And how can we use this space to do that? That's a habit, though, that you got to build. I think the next season of life will help us to build the habit that we can then put to use when we're back here. Right? Paul says to the people in Galatia, whenever you got opportunity, do good. Do good to everyone, especially to the family of faith, right? It kind of starts here. This is where you sort of build the habit. But everyone, by definition, involves people outside the faith. All the people that we're going to come into contact with, both when we're over there and when we're back here, right? That's the whole point of this be here idea. Like 25 years, we got people that we're living around that we want to influence for Christ. But that doesn't happen just because you happen to be planted here. That only happens if the community in the building is thinking about how do we actually reach out into the world and express love and care in the name of Christ. That's a habit that's got to develop. So what I'm encouraging us to do is I don't want to just survive the next year of life together. I really want us to thrive in this. I think it's an opportunity for us to leverage a chance both to grow in Christian virtue, character, but also to grow in Christian habits. Right? For me, if we get back here a year from now and it feels like, man, we grew up. Like we grew up together, right? We banded together. I mean, one of the reasons this church has been here for the last 25 years is because the people who put it here, they didn't think of themselves as customers. They were all involved. They worked together. They served one another. And they served one another because they cared about the world in which they were living. I think we're those kinds of people. Let's be those kinds of people through this next season. Growing in Christian character, growing in Christian habit. And then when we're back, we'll have a building, but we'll also be a better people, right? The kind of community, the kind of people that the world needs. Okay, we're going to finish our service this morning by taking communion together. If you're new with us, if you're just joining us for the first time, communion is part of our weekly liturgy. This is the sacrament of the church. It's a sacrament of remembrance. So here's your indicative and imperative, right? When you come forward and you take the bread that represents Jesus' broken body and the juice that represents his shed blood, you're receiving the indicative, God's initiation of love to you. You're receiving it in the only way that it can be received, which is as a free gift. You do nothing to earn it or merit it. You are God's child and God loves you for no other reason than because God is love and you are God's kid. That's how it works. And God has expressed that love all the way to the grave and back. That's what the body and the blood represent as a sacrament of remembrance. That's who our God is. Everything begins with God's love for us. But when you take those elements, this is the imperative. You're choosing to receive, right? You're entering into the life of Christ. You're choosing to live a certain way. That God's love for you changes the way that you live in the world. It changes your priorities, changes what you care about. It changes how you spend your time. It changes your values, it changes everything. It touches everything. So if you want to live in response to God's love for you as a child of God, the invitation is to come forward, come to the table, come be part of the church, part of the people of God, right? Doing good to one another and to the world. Just a minute, I'll invite you to stand. I'll dismiss you starting in the back rows. So if you haven't done this, just come down our center aisle. Our communion tables are on the sides of our stage. Here, you'll just take a prepackaged communion cup back to your seat using our side aisles, and then you can take that during this last song as you feel led. Okay. Invite you to stand. Let me pray. God, we do love you. We receive your love for us. Thank you for the free and gracious gift of yourself, for how merciful you are to us, for all the good things that we have in you. I pray that because all of those things are true, that we would choose to live as your faithful children, not to earn your love, not to merit it, but simply because we have it. Continue to shape us into the kinds of people you want us to be. Use this next season of our life together to do that in a unique way as we embrace all of the challenges as opportunities to grow in Christian virtue and in Christian habit. We love you. We thank you that we get to do this together. Sustain us in it as we surrender ourselves to you every day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Precious blood has left me forgiven, pure like the whitest of snow, powerful to make sin and shame retreat. This covenant is making me whole. So I will rise and lift my head, for by his mercy my life was spared. The highest name has set me free. Because of Jesus, my heart is clean. Purify my heart in your presence. Teach me to discover the joy of holiness that forms as you draw me close. In you, what was lost is restored. So I will rise and lift my head, for by his mercy my life was spared. The highest name has set me free. Because of Jesus my heart is clean. So I will rise and lift my head, for by his mercy my life was spared. The highest name has set me free. Because of Jesus my heart is clean. Because of Jesus my heart is clean.